many hardware design engineers, they have this dream to design a board and then sell it to many, many, many people. And it's not easy, but there are some ways which can help you. And that's what we are going to talk about today. We are going to talk with Ken about how to do Kickstarter for hardware projects, and with Ken because they have done actually a number of successful Kickstarters. So Ken is the right person to talk to.
We've done 7 Kickstarters that have all been successful making hardware products. So certainly happy to share our wisdom and mistakes we've made and all sorts of things like that.
I'm very curious about this because it looks complicated, but many people do it. So I'm very happy if I can learn something new today. So
Okay.
we can start with your most successful one. This one, Tiny TV, I see you got like over $200,000 on this one.
Yeah, and we actually followed it on with an Indiegogo campaign. So I think in total, it was about 350,000 total US dollars that we raised with this. And this was, we launched this 2 years ago on Kickstarter. And then, like I said, we followed up with an Indiegogo. And so it did really well. And we continue to sell the tiny TV.
Okay. So is it so easy, or what is behind of Kickstarter? Because I always see these professional pictures, and then you need to create some professional marketing text. And how did you come up with all these? Are you hardware design engineer, or you?
Yeah, so my background, I have a bachelor's and a master's degree in electrical engineering. And so I
Mhm.
did hardware design for a number of years, embedded system design, and then also later in my career more on the firmware design side of things. And so I worked at a consulting company for about 10 years where we helped anyone from startups to Fortune 500 companies in the US design electronic products. And so during that time worked on I think about over 50 different products. Yeah, anywhere from like a few weeks to years on certain products. And so kind of learned, how to the ins and out of actually designing products. And
Mhm.
then we didn't actually manufacture anything there. Everything was outsourced, but kind of learned that process a little bit. And um, so that's kind of where I got the original idea for tiny circuits and just, helping other people design products. And like, well, how hard could it be, right? Do your own and launch it. And so that's kind of where I got the original ideas.
So this is very interesting because you didn't do anything with sales, and your
No.
Kickstarter was still successful. So how is it possible?
Yeah, I think the original Kickstarter um, was essentially a small Arduino.
Which
And at the
one?
time,
You can open it. You can
oh, I
open
can
it.
open it. So that was the tiny Arduino. So this launched in 2012, in September of 2012. And at the time, it was just myself. And so this was just a small little electronic prototyping system. Again, essentially an Arduino just shrunk down the size of a quarter, and you could stack the boards together. So it tried to maintain complete compatibility with an Arduino Uno and the same concept of Arduino shields you could stack onto it. And so at the time, yeah, it was just me as a hardware engineer, uh, designing products in my spare time and doing prototype, on a with a little toaster oven and all that kind of stuff, in the spare bedroom of my house. But with Kickstarters, it really is a marketing and sales thing. So the board design, you can have the coolest board on earth that does all these great things, but it's how you get your message across and how you get people to come actually view the page. So there's been, people sometimes have the thought of, I'll just put it on Kickstarter and I'm done. It will just like sell itself. Realistically, it's not the case. You need to get people in your target to actually come and look at the page. And we've noticed too, and I think this is, as e-commerce has evolved a bit, people know this in terms of you get so many views to a page and you're only going to get a certain percentage that convert to paying customers. And so in the case of Kickstarters, we've noticed it's anywhere between like 1 to 3%.
I think that's like
Uh,
normal
yeah,
number for everything.
yeah, I think it's normal. So yeah, if you have 100 people view it, one or two or three might actually back the project. So it comes down to you've got to get a lot of people to view the page and you watch the video to get the conversions you need. So
Yeah, I can see 1,186 bakers. So
I would say with this product, we kind of lucked out. So at the time, I didn't know what I was doing. I put it on Kickstarter and then started to reach out to blogs and different people in the kind of the in kind of the maker scene, embedded hardware scene, and hobbyist scene. And luckily got picked up by a few major ones. We got picked up by Wired magazine at the time on their blog, and some just kind of got lucky that people actually did give us some press, and that led enough people to view the page. I don't
mhm,
think launching a board like this today, um, there's just so many little boards out there that I don't think we would have gotten any traction.
mhm,
I think it was just we lucked out in that moment of time, and that's kind of what set the business going. Now, other things we've done in the like with the TV and whatnot, we've been much more proactive with how we market that. And so we launched something called the Thumbie,
yeah,
which
you can show it.
was
Recently,
this
I
is the
think you had a recent. So this is the late. No, this is not the latest one. April
no,
15th.
this is the original Thumbie. So this week we launched in 2021. So it's a small little game console, kind of so very ridiculously tiny. It is small, it's basically the size of your thumb, hence the name. But with this product, we were much more proactive. So we reached out and we made 50 samples of this ahead of time and actually sent it out to YouTubers in the retro gaming
Hmm.
world and whatnot, just to kind of, get some publicity ahead of time. So we did have, when we launched this product, we had a few um, like YouTubers in the retro gaming space that actually put out review videos
Hmm.
at launch. And so that led to a huge amount of traffic
Hmm.
to the page. So we kind of learned from the past that you can't just put it up and wait for people to come. You have to be active in going out there and finding the market. So in the case of like gaming things, we kind of reached out. In the case of the TV, we reached out to miniature people and sent them samples and um, really tried to, let's say, guerrilla market it, but get samples out there to people, and hopefully they share YouTube content or put something on a blog. And so that's worked out well for our latest product. And then we just launched the next generation one of this, the Thumbie Color, which where is it? Which is this one. So we just launched this in August. And so this is still kind of ongoing. So with Kickstarter, we you can still back it. And so even though the Kickstarter we only launched for 30 days, it ended in I think around September 18th. Or it says September 10th there. And so we enabled late pledges so people can still come on. So even though,
Hmm.
it's only a month long or whatever you set it for, up like 60 days, I think, or maybe 90 days for a Kickstarter, you can still kind of get some people to come in late,
I
which
didn't know there is this option.
it's new. So that's why I mentioned before with the Thumbie and the TV, we did an Indiegogo campaign afterwards because Indiegogo works a little bit differently. Um,
We
and
can
so
talk about this. So because there are more options how to get the money to build products. So one of the options is Kickstarter, the other one is the Indiegogo. So what are the differences?
Uh, they're very similar. At the time, Indiegogo allowed what they call the Indiegogo in demand, which would basically be pledges forever. And so they actually had a promotion that if you did a Kickstarter, if you converted it to an Indiegogo after you were done, they would help promote it. And so they'd put you on your newsletter, and you would basically redirect your Kickstarter to them after the fact. And then you could just keep getting pledges for months and months and months. And so we did it in the past. Now the Kickstarter has basically the same
Hmm.
functionality. We just with this product, we decided just leave it. It does get confusing when you have two different things going on. People do get confused about it. Sometimes people get a little annoyed that say, "Hey, I backed the Kickstarter, and now I see you have it on Indiegogo as well. I thought this was exclusive." Or um, so in this case, we just decided to go with Kickstarter. The other differences, there's not really a lot of differences between the two.
What
We've
about
just done
money? There is difference in money, no? Or
there's different fees, but they're pretty comparable. It's like a percent or two difference. Um, we've just noticed, at least when we launched it originally, Kickstarter was the bigger platform.
hmm
And so in our mind, it's all about getting the most views to it. And just since we have a Kickstarter following and we've launched them all on Kickstarter, there are people that follow us on Kickstarter. Just so it's a bit easier for us just to keep doing Kickstarters. If we started fresh, we might take a different view. But I haven't, frankly, I don't know what the actual fees are anymore in terms of, I think they're pretty comparable. So there's like a payment fee, then there's the service fee for the platform. So in the case of Kickstarter, I believe it's about 9% that comes off the top. Like
hmm
5% of that goes to Kickstarter, and then the other 3 to 4% are credit card fees, payment fees, and whatnot
So
that are,
you collect 100,000 and you get 90,000.
yeah. Ideally, then there's other things too. So this number here, the 170 you see, that's not actually a true number because let's say the Kickstarter runs for 30 days. So people put their credit card information in the beginning, and it doesn't actually charge them till the end.
hmm
So there's some people that it'll just the credit card won't go through.
hmm
It'll be declined or um and so there's a few percent that drop out that way. I think that's also a risk if you do a longer campaign, like 90 days, it's more likely to happen as well. And then you do get people like after it charges their card, they said, "Oh, I didn't actually want to back this," and so
hmm
like in our
You
case, we
refund
just
them or
refund
something.
them. Um, so there's always those sort of things, but ideally, yeah, you get it's close to about 10% off, and I think Indiegogo is pretty similar. It might be like a percentage difference, um, but and I'm not that familiar with like a crowd supply. I think their fee structure is probably a little bit better, but I'm not that familiar. But all of them, they'll publish what their fee structure is.
For some reason, I thought difference was in like in one of them you are giving out the company shares or something, and the other
Hmm.
one is about the money. So everyone is
Not
now
in the
about money, eh?
Now, in the case of both Kickstarter and Indiegogo, it's all um, basically it's product based. So it's
hmm
essentially a pre-order campaign.
hmm
There is equity crowdfunding, which is quite a bit different. So there's sites that I think Start Engine that do that.
hmm
We've never done that. So
Okay.
it's essentially in the US, it's governed by the SEC and
hmm
there's certain crowdfunding rules. But yeah, there are sites that do that. It's not really that common for like an individual doing a hardware product. Like if it's just a person making a board, that's more for like a startup company that probably has other investment as well. Um, and so I've known some companies locally that have done that, but generally they already have investors, and now they're
Okay.
opening it up that it's a way to raise $500,000 or something like that. But I'd say the majority, certainly hardware hobbyist companies, probably aren't a good fit for that, just because those are more geared at companies that potentially will get that big growth down the road, and the investors will get money back. And
Okay. Okay.
in our case,
We
that's
can go
not.
back to this.
Yeah.
So, uh, my next question is, how do you come up with price for these products?
Price, we've kind of followed this, let's say, standard rule of thumb for hardware products. So when I did the original product at the time, Adafruit and SparkFun, I think actually Adafruit, there was an online presentation they gave about pricing products. And I think this was around 2010. Um, and so I watched that. And basically, the rule of thumb is you want to price it at least 2.5 to 3 times your cost. So cost is everything that goes into, what actually costs you to make the product, including labor, which a lot of people don't factor in,
hmm
especially if they're making themselves. They figure labor's free, which it's not once you start to scale. So if we're selling something for, let's say in the case of the Thumbie, we sell that at like $25 to $30 right now. based on that math, it costs us about $10 to make it, which is basically what our cost is. So if you go through all the components that go into it, the battery, the screen, the plastics, and everything, um, if our cost is $10, including, let's say it takes 10 minutes of time to put one together, or whatever the time comes out to be, you can figure out what that actually is going to cost you if you're to hire somebody to do that task. Um, that's your cost. And so in the case with Thumbie, let's say it costs us $10, we're going to sell it for 2.5 to 3x that. And what that allows us to do, obviously, if you sell it direct, there's pretty good margins. You're making $15 to $20 profit. Realistically, though, in the case of things you want to sell in volume, you're going to be selling through, let's say you do sell at a SparkFun or some other place, um, like some distributor. They're going to want, if they're a hobbyist type distributor, anywhere from like 20 to 40% off that. If you're selling retail, like an actual brick and mortar store, they're going to want more 50 to 60%. So if you see something on the store shelves of, say, a
60%.
Walmart, that's how it is. It's gross. But if something's selling for $10 at Walmart, Walmart themselves are buying it for $5.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you can go back through, there might be distribution and whatnot. So whoever's making that thing selling for $10 at Walmart, their cost is probably $2 to $3
Mm-hmm.
max. And they're making a little bit. So if you follow that pricing rule of the 2.5 to 3x, it affords you to do some distribution as well. So in the case of, we can do up to like 40% off a Thumbie if somebody's buying it in bulk.
Mm-hmm.
So they're buying 100, because people say, well, why can't you just sell it to me directly? The thing is that that retailer or that distributor is also taking some of the burden away from you as the company. No longer do we have to like individually ship things
Mm-hmm.
to people. So if somebody buys a Thumbie, there's a cost to us as well, that somebody now has to package this, print the label. We've got packing materials and supplies and whatnot. So there's a cost with that. There's also marketing costs. So a general, like a reseller, they might do promotions of their own through their own website. They might put it out in a newsletter. So there's a reason why they're getting that kind of discount as well. Not just they're buying in bulk, but they're kind of taking some cost away from you as
Yeah.
well. Um, so again, if you price it too low, and a lot of hobbyists will do this, they'll say it cost me $10 to make it, I'm going to sell for $15.
Mm-hmm.
You won't be able to ever really scale it because, again, likely you're probably doing the labor yourself and you're not really taking into account what things really cost. So if you're to hire people, at least here in the US, there's what you pay them per hour, but then there's taxes on top of that. In our case, we've got like healthcare that we provide for our employees. All these sorts of things add up. Um, that again, people don't really take into account necessarily. And so if you were to scale, and let's say now all of a sudden you've got a hit product and you're selling it with a very low margin, you've basically cut out the possibility of selling through any other store, any retailer, or any distributor, because they're not going to just take it for a couple of percent. It doesn't cover their costs, so they want it. Again, they're going to want that 30, 40, 50%.
Mm-hmm.
Again, is a lot. Um,
Okay.
but it's one of those things you learn.
Okay. So now, uh, when you start this uh, campaign, then do you already have the product ready? It's tested, or what is the stage? Because I've seen some of these are like very early prototypes, and then they will find out there are some possible problems. Or so, what is your experience with this?
We've always tried to do everything before we launch the Kickstarter.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
You
and like
have
you
the
said,
final product.
you have the final product. So the original product was simple enough that I basically it's a set of boards. So being an engineer and firmware developer, I was able to design the boards, uh, order, PCBs are extremely cheap. Even 15 years ago, they're still cheap. Now they're crazy cheap. You can get what you can get a board for. You can get it for a few dollars. Um, and then just assembled them myself. And so that was again, the actual amount of money out of pocket I had into it is pretty low because it's mostly just my time and some prototyping, electronic prototyping stuff. Um, but where I've seen people majorly run into problems with the Kickstarter is the product's not done.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say they get a bunch of money. It's a big successful Kickstarter. They raise $1 million, but they have to spend that money to actually finish the product.
Mm-hmm.
And realistically, the Kickstarter money really should just be to produce it.
Mm-hmm. As you said, it's
If you're using it for
pre-order.
design
It's
stuff,
not designing, covering the design or something.
no, because you're gonna run out of money
Mm-hmm.
because design work always takes more time and money than people expect, especially if you've got things like plastic and whatnot or tooling. If you don't have that well defined up front, you're going to lose your shirt. And then the problem you run into, and you see this with some of those huge Kickstarters, like you remember the coolest cooler, which was this cooler that you take to the beach. I think it
The
raised $10
box, yeah, I
million.
remember.
Yeah, I mean, they ran out of money because again, it wasn't designed right. And when they actually went to mass produce it, they couldn't. So they had to spend a bunch of money. And then eventually it went out of business. So in our case, you kind of want to take a chunk that you can actually do and launch your kit as opposed to doing some cool concept that, hey, I want to launch this would be great. But um, again, people underestimate, unless they've done it a lot, just the amount of engineering time and time to actually get something production ready. That if you got to make thousands of something, there's a lot that goes into it ahead of time. It's much different than making one prototype on your desk to make something in volume.
I agree.
So in the case of like the Thumby color, which we've got up now, so this is our latest one. We did use this money to kind of pay for the injection molded plastic,
Mm-hmm.
but we knew up front exactly what that was. So we had the design done. We had the electronic design done. We actually worked with Raspberry Pi. So this is used as a new microcontroller for them. So we launched this on the same day they announced it, the RP2350.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of had everything in place and we had a lot of the game development done as well. And so we reached out to people in our community. So the original Thumby is very popular. So we reached out to some people and to help with like the game engine development and finishing some things off. So by the time we actually launched a development kit on the same day. So basically the same thing, just didn't have the plastic. So people would actually start playing around with it and had games on it. So it was essentially the product was pretty much ready.
Mm-hmm.
So in our case now, yeah, there's some things to finish it. So the injection mold is done now, and we're making plastic for it. But again, we knew exactly what that was going to cost. Um, we've been through it enough that sometimes when you get into this and you like something doesn't fit right, and then it's like, oh, here's another $20,000. You get the next step and whatnot. Um, so we kind of knew going in exactly what it was going to take to get this, uh, produced. And so the last few products we've kind of known that, exactly going in. Like in the case of the original Thumby, we actually paid for the mold up front,
Mm-hmm.
just so we could have it kind of done. Um, so ideally, like in this case, we are due to should start shipping some things later this week. We're gonna be making up like 1,000 boards here this week. So it's like right on time. So we launched in August and we're gonna be shipping the bulk of units in November
Mm-hmm.
because people do want them before Christmas. So we want to get them all out, um, which is very quick for us compared to previous Kickstarters. And also a lot of Kickstarters, they get the money in and then it takes forever for them to actually produce it.
I've
Um,
seen so many, like 1 year later.
Years. Yeah. And they give you updates. I'm like, oh, it should be any day now. And then it's like, oh, we ran into some problem in the factory in China. Who
Exactly,
knows what?
exactly. Uh, okay, so this was about hardware. Now, what about this marketing stuff? So you do all these videos and pictures and text by yourself, or how does it work?
The original Kickstarter, if you go back, so all these pictures I took myself. I don't know if there's any good. Oh, that's me way back when. Um, so I'm not a photographer, so these pictures didn't come out the best. And if you watch the video, it's pretty crude because I made it myself and I never made a video before. So it kind of has a little bit of a homemade feel to it, which at the time was okay. I mean, it came across as like one guy doing a hobbyist type project, which again is it's fine in a lot of cases.
You
Again,
still got 100,000.
yeah, and it's still did really well. The thing is, you can't really get away with that anymore, I don't think, on a Kickstarter. So with our last few Kickstarters, we actually hired a photographer.
Hmm.
So we send products out to a commercial photographer and pay whatever it is. It's usually a few $100s. So it's not that bad. In the case of the video, we hired basically a college student that was in video design, marketing, to create the video. And so we've used a couple people over the last few videos, and they've done a really good job, and it's relatively affordable compared to like a professional. We're still kind of a small,
Hmm.
scrappy company, so we're not hiring a big marketing firm to do this where they'll charge you $10,000 to do a video. And I've known people who've done that and had
And
failed
the video is
Kickstarters.
still not good, maybe.
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily make it better. In our case, we kind of know what we want. And also with a Kickstarter video, you kind of want it very short and simple. So in the case of like the last one, I think it's a little bit over a minute. So it kind of hits you right away that, hey, it's a small little game console. Here's what it can do. Kind of gives a little history on us that, hey, we actually make it in-house. We've done this before. So, most people watching the videos, they only watch, and you probably know this too from doing YouTube videos. A lot of people only watch the first 10 to 30 seconds. And if they're not pulled in, they're just going to stop watching.
Yeah.
So the same with like marketing, you kind of want to hit it quickly that they know exactly what this thing is, make it attractive, and then as they sit through the video, ideally it kind of answers their big questions. Like since we do technical stuff, you don't want to go into too many details in a short little video, because you can put that all in the content of the page, like what the tech
Hmm.
details are, the tech specs, whereas the video is very high level. So again, in the case of like Thumbie Color, we just hired it out. Again, the person came in on site and did the video, and so we had somebody local that came in 2 or 3 days, shot the video, then edit it, and then we give them feedback and just edit it. But yeah, I mean that's marketing. I mean, good pictures, a good video. But again, don't go crazy with it because there are a number of firms out there that specialize in Kickstarter marketing. We've never used one. We've always
This
kind of
this
done
is
it
my
ourselves.
next question because
Yeah.
uh, I think there are some companies which can take some share from what you collect, and they will kind of help you to promote the Kickstarter. mm, so you say you never used them.
No, what we have done, and once you launch a Kickstarter, you'll get a lot of spam mail from all these sorts of people. There's a lot of email newsletters, a lot of sites out there that promote Kickstarters or do ads and whatnot. So we have done some of that in the past. And there's something called Kick Booster, which is essentially like an affiliate marketing site. So the way it works is if people are familiar with affiliate marketing with e-commerce sites, basically somebody gets a referral code. So I could give you a referral code that links back to the Tiny Circus website. And anybody that makes a purchase based on that code, you get some percentage back.
Hmm.
So you can do the same thing with a Kickstarter. And so that does, in that case, let's say it's like 5% that they get back. So if they put out an email newsletter to their 50,000 followers, and let's say 50 people come in and click through and actually buy the product, they get a small percentage back. So
Hmm.
we've done that, and that's kind of standard affiliate stuff. So I don't see much of a problem with that. Where I have had seen other people run into issues is when they hire a firm, you usually pay a lot of money up front, and then also the firm will take a percentage of anything that they
Hmm.
sell. And you're kind of relying on them to do all your marketing. And I think sometimes it's a crutch. And a lot of times, again, I knew a local company that spent, I think, $20,000 on a video and hired, it was a very nice video. but and supposedly left the marketing up to them. It was like an organic gardening type product they were making. Um, and I think they raised their goal was like 75,000 and they raised a little over 50,000. So it wasn't, but again, they spent $20,000 for
Mm-hmm.
that. And these guys would also, if it's successful, get like 20% of all the revenue. Um, so I would be wary of that. Thing is, with the Kickstarter, if you do it right, generally you don't make a lot of money. It's more about getting the product out there because you should be giving things at a little bit of a discount on what you would do long term. And these people are early backers. So if you're paying a bunch of money for ads and marketing, that's just eating again into that money and
Mm-hmm.
making it risky that you'll be able to actually make the product and
This is
ship it.
very important what you just said, because I've seen number of companies actually using Kickstarter to kind of launch or boost their products.
Mhm.
So basically, uh, the maybe the view what people should take is some kind of like uh, these are possible people, early people who can buy our products, and we will see if it's going to be successful or not, how kind of feedback we get, and also they will kind of help you to build the initial batch to get the proof of the product if it's good or not, or something like this.
Yeah, I we've definitely the people that back the Kickstarter generally are they want your products to succeed. They're fans of what you're trying to do, and they're also much more forgiving than the general public. So in the case of yeah, we sell like all our gaming, their Thumbies and TVs and whatnot. We sell them on Amazon and through our own website. Uh, and so if somebody has a problem with it, the customer support things, a lot of times they'll send it back to Amazon. And in the case of the Kickstarter people, they're much more helpful and also in terms of how they want the product to grow and expand. So in the
Mm-hmm.
case of the Thumby product, the reason Thumby Color was successful was there's a big community of people with the original Thumby that loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of those were the Kickstarter people. And there were issues. There's issues with any product when you first come out with it, with bugs or whatnot, or problems with the product. And instead of like raging on the internet about this thing being a piece of crap, they understand that, hey, this is an early version of it. And so if somebody had some problem, would replace it and whatnot. Um, and people do respect that on the Kickstarter. So they understand that, hey, this is something new that you're doing. If there's delays, and we've had delays, I want to say delays are on every Kickstarter product, but it's pretty common. In general, if you tell people why there's a delay, they're very forgiving about
Mm-hmm.
that. So in the case of like the original Thumby or the TV, where we got, I think the original Thumby, we with the Indiegogo, we had 5 or 6 thousand people, which is a whole fun thing to do customer support with that many people or people asking every day about where's my thing, where's my thing. Um, but in general, people and we were like a few months delayed when we started shipping that. They were very forgiving because again, we were like, here's the reason why we had some issues getting this or we had
Yeah,
to change this a
5,000
little
is a
bit.
lot actually. They like,
Yeah,
you
and
know how
that
many you have to ship every single day.
when we were going with that, we're shipping 1 to 200 a day.
Really?
Yeah,
So how
so
many
it
you had to pack in 1 hour?
you had to pick a lot. Well, luckily at this point we've got 10 people here, so it makes it a little bit easier. But yeah, we've actually made of that original Thumby, where is it? We've made over 50,000 of these so far, which is crazy. Again, all in house. So it says 4,500, but I think the Indiegogo had another 1,000 or 2,000. Um, and a lot of those people had multiple,
Oh
Thumbies.
yeah, yeah, I understand.
So we made, I think it's 10,000 Thumbies for the original Kickstarter. And that's kind of a painful product to put together. We kind of learned some lessons from that. I mean, all those little buttons and things, somebody's putting those in by hand and gluing the plastic shut, and there's a lot of steps to that. And
Now
so
I realize actually how difficult it is if you have too many orders, because yeah, if you have to deliver all of these thousands in 1 month, you have to ship every single day hundreds of the products. You have to build hundreds of the products, like What?
Yeah, so it's not just the circuit. So here up on this PowerPoint, this is the original Thumbie. So each one of those panels has 15 circuit boards on it. So that's actually the easy part. So that kind of goes through our SMT process. But then um, there's a buzzer that has to be attached. This is Austin's actually, I don't know if you can see here in the lower right.
Yeah,
There's
batteries.
there's a battery. So
Yeah.
the batteries, due to the size of the product, we couldn't use a battery that had a connector on it, which normally we would. But again, we want to make it small. So if we made it about 10% bigger, it would have made it much easier to put together. So again, we've made over 50,000 of these so far. So somebody's hand soldered those batteries onto each one. And then like the screens, like here's the screen. So this is a 0.42-inch OLED. So we actually custom made, this is actually laser cut acrylic, like a little fixture. And this is known as what's a hot bar solderer.
Mm-hmm.
Down and solders the flex because the
Mm-hmm.
screen can't go through the reflow oven. So again, that's a manual step. And then like the plastic. So the plastic comes, we have to like cut off the corners, and then you know, I don't have a picture of all the plastic going together, but somebody like you can see the plastic. Somebody's actually like here's actually red buttons over here, so we're cutting those off, putting them in. It's a lot of steps. And so like when I say labor, you do want to take into account labor. So if you're making 50,000, there's no way one person can do that, and you can't do that yourself as the owner of your widget
Yeah,
or
you
whatever
have
you're
to hire
making.
someone. Yeah.
So you've got to hire somebody. And then also it comes down to, okay, how much time does it take? In the case of this Thumbie, it used to be a lot more, but we've gotten down to it's about 6 minutes of time to
For
make each
one.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but again, it comes down to if you're paying somebody some amount of money, then 6 minutes, equals some amount of money.
But
So
still,
you can
six
make
minutes
10
for one, it means you could make 10 in 1 hour by one
per
person.
person.
Uh,
Yeah, exactly. So you can do the math of shipping out hundreds a day.
that's 100 a day. Yeah.
Now, we generally do it in steps. So we've automated some things. So we actually have, oh wait, go back. Um, we've got like some bed of nails things that the program.
Mm-hmm.
So it's gotten better, but yeah, it's time. In the early days is over 10 minutes each, and then occasionally you get some failures and whatnot. So it gets all the way to the end, and maybe the plastic is scratched, so we don't ship that one. Little things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but yeah,
Okay.
a lot of
So,
steps.
let's go back to price. So basically, what you mentioned, the goal should be set up kind of low because you would like to ship at least something, or how does it work? How do you
In
set
terms
up
of
the
the
goal?
goal for the Kickstarter,
Yeah.
yeah, we've always kept it low. There's a few reasons for that. Yeah, you want to be able to ship it, and Kickstarter is an all or nothing
Mm-hmm.
situation. So if you don't hit your goal, you don't get anything.
Mm-hmm.
The other side of that is you hit your goal, you actually have to do it. So if you set it low and it does cost you a lot more,
Mm-hmm.
you're kind of out of money, out of pocket, or you got to refund people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Generally, we've done like 10 to 25,000 is the goal. Realistically, internally, our goal is higher than that.
Mm-hmm.
But um, like I said, in most cases, we kind of have everything out of the way design wise, and we've put enough money into it internally that this is a product we're gonna likely do anyway, even if
Mm-hmm.
the Kickstarter wasn't successful.
Mm-hmm.
Do it. We've got enough anymore. We've got enough people on our email list and enough upfront information because again, we usually only do one of these a year or every 2 years. So going in, we kind of know ahead of time that, hey, there's enough people out there it's going to be successful. If we set a goal, like the Thumbie color, our goal was 25,000 and we hit it in 40 minutes. Just because, again, we knew that there are people interested in it because we're sharing it on our Discord and whatnot. Um, but yeah, generally you don't want to set your goal too high because then the downside of that is if you set it really high, that there's a psychological component too with a Kickstarter. So you as the backer, you go view a page.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say it's 10 days in the campaign and they've only raised 50% of their goal. You're like, well, they're probably not going to do it. I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
bother to
And they
back
will
it, even
stop
though
making. Okay.
even though it doesn't charge you. A lot of people say, it's not going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if that same product, let's say your goal is 50,000 and you're at sitting at 25,000, um, if you made your goal 10,000, you're sitting at 25,000, somebody comes and views it, it's like, wow, it's 2.5 times its goal. This is a hit product. And
Yeah,
then they'll,
yeah, yeah.
so I think there is a psychological thing to it that, hey, if you hit your goal very quickly, people kind of jump on the train and now you're going to go higher than is if you set your goal like really high. Um, I think just people view that and say, yeah, they're never going to hit that goal
Mm-hmm.
or something
Mm-hmm.
like that. So if we set our goal for this Thumby color at $100,000, I think it would have slowed down pretty quickly early
Mm-hmm.
on, just because again, people like to join on the winning team or
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
jump on.
I think I understand uh, because then they know it's going to be shipped, and
Hmm.
if the goal is too high, they will be like, maybe they will never get
Yeah, they're
so much
never going to
money.
hit
So
it.
yeah,
And then you say, maybe I'll come back and look at it, and then
yeah,
you forget about it.
yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like, um,
Okay, so does Kickstarter itself helps to find people who can back up your project, or you have to bring all the people to your page?
you do get some through Kickstarter itself. So once you launch on Kickstarter, um, you'll be listed under new products
Mm-hmm.
or new projects, like on their homepage or wherever. Um, and if they like the product, potentially they'll feature you.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's kind of hit or miss. So I mean, I've met with people from Kickstarter. We've got some people there, and there's different, there's a lot of different projects that go up on Kickstarter, a lot of art things, a lot of like tabletop games and whatnot. In our case, there's like a person in charge of like tech products.
Mm-hmm.
And so generally once you put the product up, you have to go through a review stage. So somebody will usually reach out to you. And if they like it, if they think it's unique, they'll put like a staff pick or something, a little
Mm-hmm.
badge on it. Um, and once they do that, that gives you a little bit of visibility too. So somebody can just go to Kickstarter and look. But in general, we've noticed you basically have to drive
Mm-hmm.
traffic to it, especially if it's a more unique, if it's like a custom circuit board. I think the bulk of people going on Kickstarter that are looking for art projects aren't going to be interested in somebody's development board that does some cool little thing with an FPGA. So a lot of that is just, yeah, you got to drive your own traffic to it, especially if you got like a very unique custom product. So like in the case of the Thumby, I think if we didn't reach out to people on YouTube and retro gamers, it would have done, yeah, I think we would have hit our goal, but it just wouldn't have been a big of a hit.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, when we have some people, like playing around with it that we're not paying, I think that also gives it some credibility that, hey, this is a honest review of a product.
Mm-hmm.
This is a cool thing, or they might say it's dumb. In some cases, like, hey, this thing's too small. I don't like it. Other people are like, wow, this is the coolest thing ever. Uh, Again, the honesty helps. So,
Okay,
but
so
yeah, it's about getting people to view your page. So that's a tricky equation, but
that's I think that's one of the most difficult things to do. Actually, I keep saying this. I can design almost any board, but to sell it, that's the much bigger problem.
yeah, I mean, there's a few things. It has to solve some problem or be useful to people, and then it has to be useful to a lot of people to be able to sell it. So you could do a very, again, unique and special function board that could be very interested to a couple people. But if you're trying to make a business out of it, you've got to make, you know, a lot of things. In the case
Mm-hmm.
of like this game console, the Thumby, it's a pretty low price point. And again, once we start selling it, we factor in marketing and everything else, we might make $5 a profit on it. So um,
And you
you've
have
got to
to
sell
sell
a
a
lot of
lot.
them.
You have to
You've
sell
got
a
to sell
lot
a
to
lot.
cover, I don't know, your wages or something.
Yeah. So again, if you're doing a cool circuit board, it's like, how do you tap into a market to sell 1,000 of a board? Or is it something you can get by and just make 25 of them and you'll be happy?
Mm-hmm.
It also comes down to if you as the hardware designer running the Kickstarter, do you want to start a company that does this all the time, or is it
Mm-hmm.
just one thing? You want to just make some boards and make a couple $1,000s on the side and you're happy with that? If you're actually trying to start a business and hire people, you need to be able to, have a product that's going to sell in volume. And then once the Kickstarter is done, are you going to continue to make it?
Mm-hmm.
Then you have to worry about how you're going to finance that. With anything, any hardware product, generally you've got to pay for all the materials and everything up front, build it, then you sell it and finally get paid.
I think that's
So
what many people they don't realize how much money you need to keep in stock, and there is time difference between when you pay it and when you get it back.
yeah, yeah. So that's one great thing about a Kickstarter type situation is you get the money up front and you
Mm-hmm.
also know exactly how many things you have to build.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, I mean, it's huge, but then there's kind of after the Kickstarter, what do you do next?
Mm-hmm.
You go put on your own website, you'll see a big fall off in demand, um, sell on Amazon. But again, it's like, how do you fund that? So that's a challenge.
Mm-hmm. Uh, so I forgot what I wanted to ask. So what do you think about people who just would like to try it with a board? Do you think a board is enough, or it needs to be some kind of product, something more unique, more interesting, or something?
If it's an interesting board, there have been boards in the past. I mean, our my original product line was just boards.
But there are so
And
many
there've been,
now.
yeah, that's the problem. There's so many. I remember, I forget how long ago. I remember the Chip is a little Linux computer. I think it came out for $9, and it did crazy good on. I don't know if it was a Kickstarter or what it did, but it raised millions of dollars. Um, again, it have to be a really killer board because again, it's there's so many boards out there now, and they're so cheap. And you've got people like in the case we use the Raspberry Pi processors, but they have their own board like the Pico, which
Mm-hmm.
there's no way we could do our own board and compete with it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of ESP type boards or stuff out of China that are just insanely cheap. So it's like what are you going to do that you can sell and actually make some money on? Because again, if you're making it, you're probably making it yourself initially, or if you hired it out to somebody, like even if you do it in China, it still costs you money to make. Um, and I don't want to say we started out in the maker world, in the hobbyist world. I'd say a lot of makers and hobbyists, they have the mentality that they can do it themselves, which is a good thing. But if you try to sell like a board, we put an ESP on a board and something and sell it for $50, people are going to say, oh, I could just go buy those components for
By $5, yeah.
$5 and make it myself. And so it's like if you're trying to sell something to the maker world, it has to be something really unique that they find value in because a lot of times people just say, I'm just going to make it myself. Um, so I'm not sure what a killer board would be nowadays in terms of something you could make that sets itself apart, that was unique enough that 1,000 people would want to buy it
Mm-hmm.
or 10,000 people. You go back to like you've probably seen the Flipper Zero, right? That it's like the hacker device. Looks
Mm-hmm.
like a little dolphin. That raised like $5 million, I think, on Kickstarter, and they sell a bunch of them. Granted, it's a whole product, but again, maybe up front, I would never have thought that would be that successful. But if you look at it now, it's like I think they've made $80 million or something in their
Mm-hmm.
last year. They're still so it's yeah. If you do something that kind of taps into an interesting need, potentially a board could fit that. I think generally, if a Kickstarter, say, if you make something more consumer focused or more polished, it opens up the market to much more people. If it's
Mm-hmm.
just a board, it's kind of limited as to how many people might be interested in buying it.
Yeah, this is exactly how I kept changing my view about YouTube videos when I started about Altium
Mhm.
software, and then I found out, oh, there is this limit, like there is only this 10,000 subscribers for Altium. What I'm going to do now? I have to do something for with,
More people.
for more people, for more people, for more people, because it may look like there are many people who are interested in boards, but you only can get, let's say, 1% of these people.
Mhm.
And if the initial group is not so big, then that's not many people. And if you make, I don't know, $20 on one device, and even if you sell 1,000, it's kind of only 20,000. That's not so much.
No.
Like,
And then, I mean, there's other costs too people don't take into account of returns. Somebody gets it, then they don't want it. It gets lost in shipping, which is very common, especially in our case, our things are pretty cheap. We we ship internationally. So generally people choose US mail.
mm-hmm,
And once it leaves the US, it's not trackable and there's always issues with it. So in most cases, we just refund people.
mm-hmm,
Because again, we don't if somebody doesn't get it and then they leave you bad messages online, just the impact of that. So in the case of we send a thumbie that we might make $5 to $10 profit on, if we send one out and it gets lost in the shipping, then we've basically lost maybe $20.
yeah,
So
but it's
we
a,
lost that profit and we lost, we'd have to make three or four more sales just to make up for that one loss.
yeah,
Uh,
it's I know exactly what you are talking about. For example, uh, even with PayPal, when you receive money,
mhm.
you always have to pay PayPal fees, and even if
Oh,
there is refund, it's
yeah, they
you have
they
to
eat the
pay it.
fees. That's yeah, so yeah, PayPal's that way, credit cards. Usually you get your fees back. We use Shopify for our main site. So we take basically PayPal and credit cards, but yeah, the fees eat into it. Then you've got the fees of the website and all that kind of stuff too. There's a lot of a lot of little expenses that go into running an online business, even if you do it yourself and you don't have an office or anything. Generally, if you want, good website, you're paying some amount or you're paying your own web service, to host it, and then payment processing and disputes if somebody doesn't get it or somebody's stealing from you. I mean, that's another, we've had that in the past where they do get it and then they claim they didn't get it and they charge back the credit card and then that actually hurts you worse. Um, so it's not usual, but it does happen. Or we actually run into a lot of credit card fraud. So people will like place an order online using a stolen credit card. And
Really?
usually Shopify is pretty good at flagging that, but then I mean, we've accidentally shipped stuff to fraudulent people.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times it's like, overseas destinations, they'll pay for fast shipping. So by the time you actually discover it, they've already gotten the product. Um, so we tend to be pretty diligent on that anymore. Just so we've got all the safeties. But occasionally that stuff will slip through and you'll lose a few $100s to a fraudulent thing. Um, or in the case of boards, the other big thing with boards to, let's say, a hobby community or a maker community is like in our case, our early stuff, you could solder wires on and, you know, people break things. And then, what's the line? They'll say it didn't work right
Mm-hmm.
versus they broke it themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
some people think it should have worked differently and want their money back. And
Yeah.
then you get this board, or you get a board back that's like, well, this is basically trash now. I can't use this.
Friend of
Uh,
mine, he keep. Usually, I have lunch with him, and they sell computers and modules. Sometimes he shows me the pictures with capacitors pulled off from the board, and customers saying, "I did nothing. I didn't
yeah, I
touch."
did nothing. So it's like you can take a hard line, but then again, you run the risk anymore that somebody's going to leave you a negative review online,
Yes,
which is
exactly.
like, is it worth it?
Yeah,
Luckily, in our case, most of our products are very cheap, so it's like, okay, we'll just replace it.
yeah,
But if you're selling an expensive board, and let's say it gets there and they plug it in wrong and blow it up,
yeah,
that's a very common thing. And then they say, oh, it didn't work. I want to send it back. I want a refund. Now you're like out, especially if it's a very expensive board. Um, it's just it's a concern.
yeah. Okay, so we covered refunds, payments.
Yeah.
now everyone who wanted to start,
I don't
selling
want to
their
discourage
own
people from starting one.
products, they will be like, oh, maybe no, I'm not going to do that.
It is a lot of fun in some ways to actually make a physical product that people use. So in the case of our original, it was cool to see people using the original Tiny Arduino boards to create little projects. And even with all the headaches of manufacturing and whatnot, it is fulfilling in a way to see people. And with the case of our new stuff, which is more like gaming focused or little TVs, we went to a gaming show here recently, just a couple weeks ago, and you see like little kids come over and play with it, and then adults, and they're like, oh, they get so excited. So just actually seeing people interact with a physical thing is pretty satisfying. I think it's much cooler than just doing software all day. And yeah, so you might make a lot more money doing software, but again, doing hardware, there's something fulfilling to actually make a physical thing and people interact with it, and especially if you're making a bunch of them.
you,
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
hard, but again, it's pretty fun too.
I you just exactly explain why I like to create free tutorials for YouTube, even if some of them are so complicated, but I really enjoy it. Like because I used to design motherboards, and you could you had to spend months of work of and you didn't know if it's going to work or not, and you had to wait, and there are so many like simple stuff. I like to create this simple stuff, like you see it within a week or 2 weeks if it works. It's like super cool.
It's cool, and especially if you see other people like interacting with it, it's cool.
uh,
I
uh,
remember like some of the early projects we did, if it like would blink some LEDs, everybody's like, "Wow, that's amazing, blinking LEDs." What this board over here does so much more, but it doesn't blink LEDs.
I'm curious
Um,
how my keyboard project will go, because I was very surprised. Like, uh, I tried color 3D printing, and I was like, wow, it's so beautiful. I never
Good.
expected it will look so beautiful. Like, I was very surprised. So I hope people will like it, and then I will be also on the side, like seeing people playing with the product, and I will be like, oh, that's cool.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, so we just got a new 3D printer, Bamboo, that can do multiple colors. So we've been playing with that. So we've
It's
got
not.
some.
I think it's something special. Like
Oh,
uh, I don't know what kind of printer it is, but it can print. It's not like the heads or something
oh,
or
it could
material.
print.
It can print any color. It's
Oh,
super cool.
is it like using an inkjet or something to
I think
deposit
there
the?
are more techniques. One of them is this inject, and but I think there is also some kind of different technique. I don't know how they do that,
I don't know.
but
No, ours, yeah, it can change the filament, and so you can have
yeah,
multiple filaments. So
but
you
that
can do four colors, I think, which is cool. But uh, doing any color would be pretty amazing.
I applied picture on the housing. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was super cool. People will see when I publish it. I don't want to publish it yet because I know from past, uh, it's kind of like one opportunity. Once you show it, everyone is like, wow, and they will click and go there and check it. And if I publish this picture too soon, then I will miss this opportunity, and then I will publish video, and everyone will be like, oh, I already seen
I've
that.
already seen it. Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
hear that.
Okay, so what does your company do actually? We didn't talk about your company. Can you
Well,
show
we
your
do this.
website? Can you show your website?
Oh yeah, I showed the website. So I mean, our company's Tiny Circuits. So we make tiny little circuit boards and products. So most of the things that most of the big things we've done and we've launched via Kickstarter. So obviously we've got like TVs, the Thumbies, but say our original product line was Tiny Arduino. So we've got
Mm-hmm.
like a bunch of different boards. So again, you can see it's basically the size of a quarter. The original one actually was circular, but we went square. So the boards stacked together. So we've got this kind of stuff. So this is kind of how we started. And we still manufacture this. We still support it. We haven't done many new boards for this recently.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of branched out. We did what we called the wirelings, which this we actually did a Kickstarter around as well. We need to make a lot of stuff up. So the idea of these are basically simple little boards that just connect via wires.
Hmm.
So you can actually connect it to, let's say, a Pi, or standard Arduino. So like little screens, a lot of little sensors and whatnot that you can just plug via cable, which is just basically I2C communications. And then, so that's kind of what we consider like the maker stuff. We also have a e-textile platform based on like the
And all
lilies.
this started with your one
Yeah, so
sort
this
of
all
small
started
board.
with the original product, and then we've kind of offshoot. So we started to do more kits. So wow, everything's sold out. Uh, so like this tiny arcade, which I do have one like right here. So this was a Kickstarter as well, and this is kind of our first thing into video games. So it's a kit that you make. Um, and then we made a TV kit, and then lately we've kind of gone more into standalone products. So if you see this little TV is based on the Tiny Arduino platform, so you can see the boards that kind of go into it. So it's got like a screen board and little remote, battery. So it's all kind of modular like kits. But then this TV was extremely popular, so that's why we made the new
So how
TV.
people use it? Why is it popular?
People, you can load your own videos onto it. So people really like it. It's a cute little product. It doesn't really have a need other than hey, it's cute and you can put it in your desk or load your kids' videos or cat videos or whatnot onto it. So, like I
Okay,
said,
so it's like cool present, for example. You can give it to
it's
someone.
a cool present. So, people love this. So actually, we've got a lot of demand for these. So we're making up a few thousand of these just for like Christmas time. Um, and you can see there, you can use the remote control to change it. It's all about loading your own videos onto it. So these are kind of the standalone products. So that's kind of us in a nutshell. So like I said, we've got 10 people that work here. So we've got two full-time engineers and myself, although I don't do much engineering anymore. And so they do all the electronic design and then the software design as well, firmware design. So in the case of the TV, like all the embedded firmware that goes on there to, stream video from the micro SD card to the screen. Then we actually have a PC app, Windows and Mac and Linux, to convert videos to a
Mm-hmm.
format that can run on
Mm-hmm.
this. In the case of Thumby, we actually have a website, like a web IDE, to create your own games for it. So you can create your own games in MicroPython and download them to them. So one of our engineers kind of has done all that as well, and we're doing that for the Thumby color as well, kind of putting together a whole code editor, online emulator
So
that you
you
can kind of
play
use. So
every day.
yeah, so and then we manufacture everything. So we actually have I probably put pictures. So we have our own SMT line. So you've seen this stuff, but we go back. I mean, oh, this is early days. This is kind of us moving in. So this is our original SMT line. So there's a Zivatech Peak and Place. This is a BTU oven, which we still use. It's an old picture of me, a little bit fatter, in front of the machines at our old location. And here's kind of like had like a show and tell. But our current machines, I don't know if it's going to come through, but it's a Juki machine that we use now for pick and place. I don't know if I have any static pictures of it. Um, so again, we've got a small S&T operation. So we've got a stencil printer, a pick and place that can actually do like 12,000 components an hour. Um, and even like O1, O5 size components or an O2, O1 metric component.
So do you
So
use this only for your products, or you also build for someone
we build
else?
some other products as well.
Okay,
So
because
we
I
do
was
some,
like, that's like many machines for you. You would have to sell like tens of thousands every month.
so we do a couple other products for some other people. But yeah, the machines are pretty much kept. Dave, who you saw there, let's pause this. So Dave kind of runs the SMT. He's been here like 10 years. So um, he basically runs all the SMT stuff by himself. But then we can make, like in the case of Thumby, we can make 500 boards a day through the line. And that's just with like 7 hours of work with Dave. Um, it's all the other steps that take all the time, the manual steps. But then yeah, we do some basically contract products for other people as
Mm-hmm.
well. We're not really geared as a true contract manufacturer, but we've got a few products that we help design.
Mm-hmm.
There's
And
one
you
product we
manufacture
make
them.
about a
Mm-hmm.
thousand a month of for somebody else, and some other little boards.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of do that to supplement our own thing. We prefer to do our own products, but like you say, we've got this line, so might as well use it to, you know, our products tend to be pretty cyclical. So, we sell a lot around like the holiday time, Christmas time.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a good gift. So, like in the spring and other times, it's nice to have some other products to fall back on.
Mm-hmm.
That we're making up a lot of TVs and Thumbies right now. It'd be great if we sold that many year round, but realistically, there's a huge peak that's coming up here next month, like right before Christmas, that we sell a lot of
Mm-hmm.
product, which is good. But again, as like if you're manufacturing stuff, it's kind of nice to be able to spread things out
So
evenly
you have
across
to,
the
but
year.
you have to manufacture them in front and then hope it will all sell.
We do have to hope. So, yeah, I'm pretty confident it will sell. But and the other thing is, if it doesn't all sell, we'll sell it eventually. But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it'd be nice to sell out quickly because again, like you said, it's the whole paying for materials and then getting paid. So if it's sitting here on the shelf waiting to ship out, uh, it's just costing us money essentially, or it
Yeah.
costs us money that we're just not getting back in.
So what are the other projects? We didn't go through the other projects on your Kickstarters. How
Yeah, so we did, if we go through all the Kickstarter, so we did the Tiny Duino. Then next up was what we call the Tiny Screen. And this was basically just a follow-up to the Tiny Duino. So we added a small OLED screen to the platform. And then we had little projects you could make with it as well. So like a little video game system. But basically it was just the screen. And we added some things like you could play videos and whatnot. So it's kind of taking the Tiny Duino platform to the next level. And so that actually did really well. That raised
But
128K. And
scroll down, scroll down. So you have contacts in all more, more, more. There were logos from the
oh yeah,
yeah
so
this.
so all these places actually publish stories about this. So
Huh.
again, we lucked out with this. We reached out to people, but a lot of these places actually did, or actually all these places did publish some story about the Kickstarter.
So how do you do that? How do you reach? Because the from my experience, even I receive many many emails, and how you can get picked up by them.
Basically cold emails. So the thing is, if you get one good one, let's say like a CNET or
Oh,
Gizmodo, once they publish
they
it,
will
other
pick it
people will
up.
see it.
Hmm.
So the trick is getting into one of those. And again, I think it was just luck. So it'd be reach out. We've got pictures about, hey, you can make your own smartwatch. At the time,
Hmm.
Pebble was popular. I can remember the Pebble watch. And so, I mean, that's kind of an ugly smartwatch, frankly. That's a 3D printed case. Um, and then we kind of had this fake little like Google Glass type thing at the time. Google Glass was popular. So we had these different example products you could make. And so people picked up on that. And that's how we got the press for this one.
Hmm. So basically, when we were talking about board versus product, uh, it's not only about the group of people which is going to buy, but even like helping you to promote is for the promotion is very important to actually have something interesting, something what these kind of publishers they would like to
Right.
write about or
It has to have enough generic appeal that like
mm-hmm,
some blog would share it,
mm-hmm,
even though the person from the blog likely is never going to buy the board. But it's like,
mm-hmm.
hey, here's this new thing that's interesting. Um, and so yeah, like in the case of this, this did really well for us. Like I said, this was our second Kickstarter, and it did better than the first one. And then next up, I think is a Tiny Arcade. See, we launched this next. So again, if you notice, the previous one was the screen.
Mm-hmm.
And so is not a big leap that this is
Oh, this
basically
was
built upon
more
the screen.
expensive, though, so less people bought them, or?
Less people, which
Mm-hmm.
was kind of surprising us. We thought this one would do better. And actually, this, even though the Kickstarter didn't do great, this was our biggest selling product for about 3 or 4 years. And so this, even though the Kickstarter wasn't great, when we launched it afterwards, it did very, very well. So we sold a lot of these afterwards. But again, this so it's basically the same boards as the previous project, but we made a case around it and made some games for it and made it that you could make your own games. So we had like we got like tested.com, we had some other
See,
um
there. If you build this with the color 3D printing, that would look really cool.
it would look cool. So this actually is 3D printed, but those are stickers. Again, this was done 8 years ago, I think, but you can kind of see it's got like standard boards in it. So we came out some new boards, but it's basically again another step of the same Tiny Arduino platform. And then we did,
I have technical question.
yeah.
I see you use many displays. How you are sure when you pick up a display for your product is going to be available after 5 years?
It's gonna last 5 years.
Because displays are tricky. I don't...
Displays are tricky. I guess that's one benefit of doing consumer products is maybe the market's a little more forgiving. Um, yeah, we haven't had much of an issue. So in the case of the arcade, like this arcade that I have here, I mean, this one was because it's an old version. This was probably built 5 or 6 years ago, and it still looks good. Uh, I guess we've gotten lucky. We haven't done a lot of um,
Redesigns.
investigation into displays other than we generally use displays that have been used in consumer products that we can
Mm-hmm.
get fairly cheaply. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the things have been used in phones in the past, like
Mm-hmm.
old flip phones and whatnot. So that particular screen, if you remember, some of the old flip phones would have a screen on both sides. Um, I think these screens were the ones used kind of on the back side, so it's a smaller little screen. So
Mm-hmm.
again, the I guess we're kind of leveraging that maybe Nokia's and people like that have done more due diligence on the actual screen itself.
So how did you find the screen, or did you like check first the manufacturer, or because I think this is one of the biggest mistakes what sometimes people do when they are starting with designing products is
Mhm.
they build it somehow, but they
And
completely
can't get
forget that they will need to keep building these in thousands for a couple of years, and
Mhm.
sometimes they are not able to buy the components what they use for their prototypes.
Yes, screens are tricky, like you say. Sometimes screens are a single source, and if that single source goes away, especially if it's used in consumer product,
Mm-hmm.
because a lot of things are in like cell phones, and cell phones change so frequently that if that big customer isn't there anymore, they're going to stop manufacturing the
Mm-hmm.
screen. So generally, we try to find screens that are more generic and have multiple sources. So in the case of the screen, this
Mm-hmm.
it's a 0.95-inch screen. There's I think 3 different manufacturers that actually
Mm-hmm.
make this screen that are all compatible with each other, and we've had to use different ones, and there's little minor differences between them. But um, in the case of the Thumby, that screen is actually made by a few different people as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we generally try to do that. In the case of we do have this, which is an even smaller version of the TV, the Tiny TV Mini. This screen is a single source, so we've had issues with this screen. The good thing about this is I don't want to say a good thing. We don't sell a lot of these because it's a more specialty thing. We kind of focus more on the bigger
Bigger.
TV
Mm-hmm.
now. So we still manufacture these. It's just any advertising promotion we do around the bigger
Mm-hmm.
TV. Um,
Bigger is
so
still small.
it's still, yeah. So it's, I mean, it's
Yeah, yeah. I think the
quite a
bigger
bit.
is actually better because,
The bigger is better.
yeah, because you can even see something there. On the small one, without my glasses, I think it would be just blur.
Yeah. So like here's, you can see the little
It
fireplace
looks so
going.
cool, actually.
The resolution's quite good and it's got rotary knobs on the front. So, but yeah, this screen, we buy 1,000 at a time, but there's always issues potentially of getting them.
Mm-hmm.
So if we couldn't get them for a while, it's not the end of the world. It's one product that we don't focus a lot on. We'll still make when we can. So we're making some up right now because we got some screens in. But basically the screen vendor or the manufacturer, they won't make any unless they have like 100,000
Mm-hmm.
that they can make in one batch.
Mm-hmm.
So they're always asking about, hey, when are you gonna place another order? We want to like
Mm-hmm.
schedule this out because they've got a few other customers interested in it. But um, again, it potentially could go away at some point. But we try to avoid it. So if we had one product, if this was our one product, and we'd be kind of screwed, if they discontinue that screen,
Mm-hmm.
change
Okay.
something.
Okay, so what was the next one?
This, which we called Whiskers at the time, we changed the name to Wirelings because another company actually had a trademark around Whiskers. So that they there's another company that made kind of a hobby type sensor system. But they reached out and they were nice about it, but basically they said you have to change your name
Mm-hmm.
or we'll be forced to sue you.
Mm-hmm.
And so we changed the name. So we changed it to Wirelings. They let us run the Kickstarter out all the way
Mm-hmm.
with the name as long as we like mentioned, hey, we're going to change the name.
Mm-hmm.
So these, like I said, are basically small little boards. They could connect up to like a Arduino or Raspberry Pi. Again, it's
This is
just
example of, I'm sorry for interrupting, but this is example of a kind of board, and if we go up, we can actually
yeah,
see the difference, how many people baked this project and how much you, because the
yeah.
number
So
is
this
not,
was
yeah.
this was our worst Kickstarter ever. So, and the other problem was it's hard to see, but we also had like you can see some of these options, like so many different boards. These are all the different boards here, like
Mm-hmm.
time of flight, buttons and whatnot. And I'd say more is not better.
Mm-hmm.
I think it led to a lot of confusion about what am I going to get? Is a pain in the ass to make them all, because they're all different quantities. So there's all sorts of, then we have like projects and things you can make with them, but there are so many different boards and options and just a lot of documentation we had to put together. So every
Mm-hmm.
board basically needed an example sketch. We had to do, sketches for both Arduino and Raspberry Pi and, all sorts of examples, which each individual one wasn't that much, but we've got 35 different boards, I think we had as part of this platform. And again, it's something we still sell. And some of the boards are useful. Like here's a pulse sensor board that actually we sell a lot of those still. Um, but yeah, it was not, we definitely lost money on this Kickstarter. I'll say
Mm-hmm.
that because we spent a lot of time. We had another engineer at the time putting together a whole wiki page of examples and whatnot that took months of time. Um, and like I said, so many different boards. A lot of the boards we only sold for like $4 or $5. Um, So that was kind of our last true standalone maker board type project that we did. This is about 5 years ago. And again, we still sell these and we still make them. It's just it didn't do that great. Um, and so we haven't done a true standalone board project since
Mm-hmm.
then. Everything after that, we kind of went through the other things. So we did that. And then we did the Thumby. And so this was kind of our first true, I guess, consumer product. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
something, not a kit you put
Big
together.
difference, big difference.
Big difference. And also, we still kind of had the same angle to it. It's small and you can create your own games for it. So we did kind of have the hacker maker ethos still there that you can create your own games. And so we put a lot of documentation into, how so you can kind of see here, there's basically a web IDE that we created that you can download Python and make your own games for it. But it did come completely pre-assembled. It wasn't trying to be a kit, and it's appealing to just general people that want like a small
Mm-hmm.
game, as opposed to even though we had the learn to program aspect to it, you can still kind of tinker around with it.
Mm-hmm.
We focused more on that. Hey, it's just a cute little game system. You can see it did much better.
Mm-hmm. What are the prices? Because even the prices are lower, I think.
The prices are lower here, so we did do. And this again is a marketing technique. So we had the original Thumby, which was gray for $19.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, we didn't make a lot of money on this. Like I think I said, it cost us about $10 to make one now.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the early days, it was more like 12, $13 to
Mm-hmm.
make one. Um, but this was a way to get people into the project.
Mm-hmm.
And then we kind of upsold them that
Mm-hmm.
you can change your color,
Mm-hmm.
which, to be honest, didn't really cost us anymore.
Mm-hmm.
We just molded the plastic in different color. But a lot of people opted to get, pay $5
Mm-hmm.
more. And they also had like a special edition one, which came in a special case and was gold, and you got your name in the credits. You can see like over 600 people backed
Mm-hmm.
this, which frankly, the cost of this version of materials is the same as the $19
Mm-hmm.
one.
But you
Just
need to customize it a little bit.
we customized a little bit, so there was a little bit more, but again, then you try to upsell people to like multi-packs and whatnot. So a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
did get multiple player packs, and um, so again, in this case, yeah, we sold it essentially at a discount because we wanted people in, and a lot of people did this, and then a lot of people added things onto
Mm-hmm.
that as well. So even though they only pledged $19, we did have the option that you could add things on, so people could add like an arcade kit to it or
Mm-hmm.
something, down the road. So we did get, additional sales that way. And then a lot of people got these and really loved them, so they came back for the next project as well. So it wasn't just one product that we put out there and that's what we're going to live on the rest of our lives. We tried to do like one new thing every year. And so all these people that back this, a year later, we launched the TV. And so a lot of those people bought the TV as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the TVs we launched, so similar thing we did when we did early birds, but so we had a $49 TV, and then if you wanted it in clear, it cost you $10 more.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people did that, and then we had a special edition one too, where you get your name and your credits in a special box and that kind of stuff. So ways to make people feel a little bit special. They pay a little bit extra to get their name in the credits or different things. And so this again, we did. I think I showed on the website. We did do like a kit version of the TV, but this was a standalone product, which again was very successful. Since we had the kit version, we knew people liked it, but we went and like improved the screen. We added the little knobs on the front that you can change the channel, added a remote. Kind of took some feedback from that, made it easier to load videos onto it. So like in the case of the TV, there's actually a USB-C port in the back, so you can just plug it in your computer and it comes up as a USB drive that you can put your files onto.
You can also charge it from
And
this.
you charge it from the USB as well.
Because I was thinking like how long it can work without cable.
This can run for about 2 hours on the
Mm-hmm.
battery. And then you can actually, well, you can run it indefinitely off the USB, and you can
Mm-hmm.
actually kind of stream video to it over USB as well. So we've got like a website you can go to, and it uses web USB from Chrome, and you can stream your screen to the tiny screen on here if you want. Um, and then the Thumby color, which is the one we just did. And so is that seven? I think it's seven.
You
I've
got
lost
me
count of how many
so
Kickstarter we did.
many ideas. Now I will be thinking because my software engineer he's always like, let's put the keyboard on Kickstarter, and I'm like, I don't want to make hardware. It's a lot of work, a lot of
It's
money.
a lot of work to make, and it's a lot of support, but and it's fun too when you get people seeing it. So we're pretty excited to get this out there. Like I said, we've got some people with developers kits out there making games for it, so it's also cool that people can interact with
Hmm.
stuff. Um,
So where
so
do
I'll be
you run your
excited to see how this
community?
goes.
On Discord mostly, or?
Yeah. So when we launched the Thumby, we put up a Discord. And we weren't sure about it, but it's done very well. So there's a lot of people on there. So like with this, we were doing little teasers about, before we came out with it. And that's why we did the developers edition, just so people could start developing games on day one. And yeah, it's been, like I said, Discord, we've got hundreds of people on there that are fairly active. I think of, I don't want to speak out of turn. I don't spend a lot of time on Discord myself. I do go on there and like tease stuff occasionally. That's fun. But we've got two engineers that spend a lot of time on Discord answering questions. But the cool thing is there's some with this and the Thumby, there's some true professional game developers that just for fun like to play around with it. And so they'll do some really cool, projects and games.
Mm-hmm.
And they're hanging out on the Discord too, just answering questions. And so those were some of the ones we recruited. Again, we just gave them early prototype hardware and they played around with it and hammered away on the game engine. And so for this, we actually have like a true game engine. So you can do some 3D graphics and a lot of physics calculations and whatnot that were basically a low-end microcontroller, which there wasn't really anything out there that kind of existed that would work well for this. So even in Python at a high level, you can do some pretty complex things very quickly. Because again, the engine is actually all written in C, so it can be quite fast. It's got a little vibration motor in it, so it's a cute little product, and it's much easier to play than the old Thumby, which is one of the biggest complaints. Is
Interesting. Okay, I ask about the community because from my experience, you know, I have, for example, many people, many subscribers on YouTube, but it's extremely hard to actually get in touch with these people.
Mhm.
So when you always mention like we will get support from people who ordered our products before.
Mhm.
Mm, for me, it's like sometimes difficult. I publish a video and
Yeah, yeah. So Discord has worked out really well. Like I said, there's the nice thing is there's like multiple channels. So people have broken down if like some people working on a particular game, there's like a channel for that where there's like four or
mm-hmm,
five people working on it. And then so we've got like a channel for just the Thumby color for
mm-hmm,
general stuff, and then there's breakdowns about somebody. There's actually a group of people for this. This is just a monochrome screen, but they figured out a way to do grayscale on it by doing some tricks with the LCD and like
mm-hmm.
turning things on and off very quickly, so they could do 4 shades of gray. And so there's some of an unofficial library of people doing that. And then the problem, like I said, we actually source the screen from multiple places. So there's slight differences in the actual screen from one manufacturer to the other, which works fine normally. But then these people are doing like really kind of crazy timing things with the screen to get this to work. And so they've worked around that. And, is this the old screen or the new screen? And so it's interesting to see people kind of like trying to figure out the internals of the platform in ways that we ourselves have not really delved into. It's like, the screen works for what we're trying to do, and they're doing kind of crazy tinkering with it. But it's always cool to see like hardware people getting into and embedded people getting into the crazy little nuances of,
You
hacking the
just give
hardware to
them
do things that
hardware.
we really didn't design it to do.
Uh, okay, so I asked everything what I wanted to ask. So do you
Okay.
have something else what you would like to tell people who would like to try something like this, like design hardware, software, and maybe try Kickstarter?
I'd say if you're interested in doing it, definitely do some research. There's a number of companies. I mean, we've done it. There's been companies much more successful than us that have done it. There have been companies that have raised much more money and failed. Um, so try to figure out what you're trying to do. Make sure that you've got the capability of doing it without. I would say the big thing is make sure you have everything done by the
Mm-hmm.
time you launch the Kickstarter. Once you launch the Kickstarter, like in the case when I launched the original Kickstarter, that month that you run the Kickstarter or 60 days or however long you run it, you can choose. Your entire focus should be on Kickstarter marketing, like getting the word out there, reaching out to people, getting in YouTube channels and whatnot. You shouldn't be worrying about design things and so it's like interacting with the people and just focus on that. And ideally, by the time it's done, you should be ready to start making things.
Mm-hmm.
So especially if you're designing a board, make sure you've got everything done. And I think it'll help with sales too. If you can convince people about, hey, this is ready to go, that I just need the money to actually, buy stuff in
Mm-hmm.
bulk, manufacture it. You'll be much better off than when you've got like a half-baked prototype that's not really ready for production yet. You're just gonna make people more upset when you have delays and run out of money. So I wouldn't discourage you from doing it. I'd say just be aware what you're going into. It is a lot of work, probably a lot more work than you think. Um, Dealing with people is fun sometimes. Sometimes it can be annoying. You'll get a lot of questions. Um, just be aware that hey, they're the ones backing you, they're your customers. You got to treat them right and have fun and hopefully make some money. I would say the first Kickstarter, like you said, we raised close to $110,000. I think I only lost about $60,000 on it. So
You only lost
that's a,
60,000 on it?
yeah. So like, well, we actually, or I actually bought like a pick and place machine and other things and kind of started getting going. And then we had all sorts of issues with manufacturing because again, I was an engineer, not a production person, so I learned a lot of things about how to manufacture products. And we scrapped a lot of product. We had a lot of issues. Um, but it started at the company too. So again, my goal was to actually start a company. So yeah, I lost money on it, but it if it didn't happen, it wouldn't we would have never started the
Mm-hmm.
company. Um, just take it in mind about do you really want to make money on it, or do you just want to like this is the first step to doing something cool?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know a lot of Kickstarters that really made a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. So
Break
there,
even.
ideally, there would be some other reasons running this because maybe you would like to start your own company or you would like
Yeah.
to get proof of something, proof of your ideas, or just having fun and trying it, or
Yeah, see,
doing
a
or
lot of
using it as a
people,
marketing, for example, but not really focusing on making money because that may not work.
yeah, I'd say the Kickstarter isn't a great way to make money. Um, but if you've got a good product, it's a good way to get it out there,
Mm-hmm.
learn some stuff, and then potentially then you can make money when
Mm-hmm.
you know, launch the product down the road. But the initial Kickstarter really again, in our case, it got the company off the ground.
Mm-hmm.
We did lose some money at the end of the day just because again, we made a lot of mistakes, but you know, we're here 13 years later
Mm-hmm.
because of that original Kickstarter. Um, so if you want to start a company, it's a way to do it. Um, but yeah, have fun.
Thank you so much, Ken.
Hi,
I
thank
really
you,
hope
Robert.
many people will find this useful. I find this useful. I'm going to use it, and
Well, I look forward to your
let's
future
see if I will
projects.
make it. Oh,
All right,
thank
well, thanks
you,
for having me, Robert. I appreciate it.
thank you. Okay, bye, bye, Ken. Thank you,
Bye. Thanks.
and that's everything. Thank you very much for watching this video. By the way, we are preparing some very interesting tutorials, so if you don't want to miss them, hit the subscribe button. If you want, you can also check out our Fedevel online courses, where you will find everything important from basic board design up to advanced hardware design and PCB layout. The link is in the description. That's all for this video. Thank you again. Don't forget to leave your comments and see you next time. Bye.